Hey guys, it's Andrew here. And in the last video, we took a look at the basics of the rules of communication, right? And when we're speaking with one another in a human interaction, how does those basic rules of communication work? Like in a phone call, despite the fact that my phone picture wasn't very good, maybe I might be in violation of some rule of poor drawing, but I digress. The basic rules of communication here being that we have an established set, right? And we say, you know, when I'm speaking, you're not speaking, and when you're speaking, I'm not speaking. In other words, when I'm speaking, you're listening, when you're speaking, I'm listening. And there's this understood role and mode of communication. I also didn't touch on it, but we also speak in the same language, right? I am speaking in the English language right now. If you don't understand the English language and you only understand French and I only understand English, it's going to be very difficult for us to communicate with one another. All right? So that's another thing. We have all these different levels and roles and modes that provide rule sets for our communication between one another in written language and spoken language, maybe even in interaction and body language as well, all right? Giving off different body language signs may or may not signal what we intended to communicate with another person. So that being said, what about computers, right? I said we've got all these human interactions, so how do we tie that into computer systems? So computer systems and our computer network systems, we have three main types of communication, just the different styles that we're going to look at, right? Now we have different, as I mentioned, we have different protocols, right? So if we have our different protocols. And these might be things like, we might have the Internet Protocol, version 4, Internet Protocol version 6, Transmission Control Protocol, and the list goes on, right? And we have many different protocols that define different levels and different functions within our networking models, all right? So looking at our the different modes of communication, what are the basic ways that our computers can communicate with each other? Before we look into breaking down IP addresses, how are they even going about communicating? So the first and foremost, we're going to look at three main types. So the first type we're going to take a look at here is Unicast. Now Unicast traffic is going to be a one-to-one relationship, right? And here we're going to have, in this case, we're going to have a computer. Now maybe this might be what we call a computer-to-computer, or maybe peer-to-peer. Actually peer-to-peer, I'll take that back. I'll stick with computer-to-computer just so we don't get confused. Computer-to-peer, or maybe even computer-to-server, right? We might have some type of server sitting out here. And this is going to be a one-to-one traffic communication, right? And I'm going to have an address here, so maybe 192.168.42.10. All right, it's kind of hard to see. And then this guy is going to have some other network, 10.10.1.1. And anytime this computer wants to make a connection to this guy, it's going to call on its IP address, and this guy vice versa. All right, and we're going to have this one-to-one communication. All right, now the next type we might want to look at is multicast. Now, multicast is a little bit bizarre. And I might actually, I'm going to skip this guy here, and I'll come back to it because this is a one-to-many relationship. And then we also have a broadcast. All right. And a broadcast is going to be a one-to, we'll call it one-to-all, or one-to everyone that could possibly be listening. All right. Now, this could be in a computer network. This is going to be a single computer broadcasting its traffic out to anyone that could possibly be listening. Another example of this might be like a stereo in a car, right? And there might be a tower, right? There might be some type of tower, and it was, it's a DJ, an FM station, and they're broadcasting this out. And anyone that's driving along within the broadcast range can hear the song, right? If you don't want to listen to it, you don't tune into it. If you do want to listen to it, you do tune into the channel. So it's a broadcast radio, all right? And it's just going to broadcast it out to everybody. Our computer systems can operate in the same fashion, all right? We can also take a look at the multicast. Now, a multicast is going to be a one-to-many. And this many is very specific in that we might have a single computer here, but it will send it out to a group of specified machines, or in our case, a group of machines that are listening on a multicast network and really looking for traffic on a very specific network, all right? There may be many of them at the time when the computer or set of computers sends out that message, but it will be everyone that's part of that network. All right. An example of this might be an email chain. All right. So in an email, right, your computer sends out a little email here. All right. And it's going to send out the email to everyone in the email list. Right. Now in a unicast, that would be one email from me to another email to a friend of mine. And then a broadcast might be like spam, right? Where you just get spam in your inbox and people just send it out to anybody and everybody of an address they can find, and they just dump it out there and they hope everyone gets it. This might just kind of be, or like kind of like a postcard where they just send it out to everyone in like a town, right? And everyone in the town or on the street might get the postcard, right? That might be a broadcast example. But again, this multicast here, we're going to have very specific recipients, but we're going to have a specific group of recipients that are looking for this email or this message. All right, so those are the three main types of communication that we're going to see in our networks. Now, this is focusing predominantly, all this here, on IPv4. And we will actually see later on that IPv6 does away with this broadcast network and replaces it with something called Unicast. And that's a bit outside the scope of this video. But again, the point being that we are going to have different modes of communication with different sets of devices, whether that be a one-to-one communication, whether that be one device sending it to many other devices on a network, or if that's going to be a computer or a system sending it out to anyone and everyone that could possibly be listening on its network, and that being in the form of a broadcast. So in the next video, we're going to take a look at actually breaking down our binary addresses. So we've talked about these different modes of communication. Now we're going to start taking a look at the actual way that a computer breaks down this data and sends it across the wire or a wireless network, right, in the form of our binary information, right? And we're going to look at how we arrive at counting in this style, and we're going to use the existing number system as sort of a basis and a jumping off point. And then we're going to move back and forth between here and those binary addresses. This is not the IP address, but the binary addresses that correspond with their given binary values, and being able to move back and forth between these decimal and binary numbers. So I'll see you guys in the next video.